After decades of struggle in a foreign world filled with martial artists, mystical creatures, and cultivators, a tired soul reflects on 50 years of hardship and isolation, while his companions each found their destinies, some blessed with rare constitutions, others swept away by chance encounters or innate talent. He alone remained ordinary, never discovering any gift, spiritual root, or special power. He survives by leveraging what knowledge he can from his old life, making soap and scraping by through menial work, only to have his small successes stolen or destroyed by others and fate itself. Even as he builds a life from nothing, every step forward is met with loss, theft, and disappointment until, aged and sick, he lies in bed, lamenting his fate and the injustice of a world that gave him no opportunity. As his life slips away, he wishes desperately for just one more chance. Instead of oblivion, he awakens in his youthful body, surrounded by his old colleagues, dressed as he was on the day they all arrived in this world. In that moment, he realizes the truth. He has returned to the past, granted the unique power of regression. He is not without ability after all. His power is to begin again. After awakening in a strange forest with his old company colleagues, memories come flooding back of how they all landed in this unfamiliar world after a landslide during a company trip. Old grudges and workplace dynamics surface immediately, especially with Jeon Myung-hoon, who blames everything on the protagonist despite being responsible for making him drive while sleep deprived. Unlike the first time, the protagonist, hardened by 50 years of suffering and humiliation in this world, stands up for himself and puts John in his place with a well-earned beating, then apologizes to the group for his outburst. As night approaches, the group splits up to search for their missing SUV and a safe place to sleep, but only the protagonist, drawing on memories of his previous life, skillfully leads his team to a hidden cave. He demonstrates uncanny survival skills, earning the others' admiration and making their first night in the wild bearable. The next morning, with the knowledge of what's to come, he prepares medicinal herbs just in time for the arrival of the forest's fearsome owner, a gigantic three-tailed white fox. The fox's overwhelming presence terrifies everyone, but the protagonist, remembering the proper ritual, bows with respect, saving the group from certain death. The fox, intrigued by the protagonist's unique scent, demands a price for allowing them to stay, one of his limbs as tribute. A tense and desperate bargain is struck when the massive fox, ruler of the forest, demands a tribute from the group, a human limb in exchange for safe passage. The protagonist, remembering the disastrous outcome of refusing in a previous life, offers up his own arm. Despite the agony of the loss, he survives, applying his knowledge of herbs to staunch the bleeding and numb the pain. The fox, satisfied, grants the group 7 days of safety and leaves them to their fate. Inside the cave, the others are shaken by the sacrifice and the uncertain future. While the protagonist rests from blood loss and pain, Jeon Myung-hoon tries to plot a way to make him the perpetual sacrifice, suggesting to the others that they should continue using his limbs as tribute. Though the protagonist contemplates violent retribution, he instead chooses to bide his time, knowing the group will soon be separated by events beyond their control. The next day, a two-headed snake arrives, seeking a taste of blood in exchange for sparing the group further harm. The protagonist cleverly volunteers Jeon Myung-hoon, who grudgingly offers some of his blood, only for the snake to complain about its poor taste and leave. Meanwhile, knowledge of local herbs and edible plants is shared, even as tensions simmer within the group. On the third day, a supernatural storm brews, and 3 powerful cultivators descend in pillars of light, each seeking mortals with rare gifts. Jeon Myung-hoon, Deputy Manager Kang, and Chief O are each discovered to have exceptional spiritual roots or bodies, and are forcibly recruited into rival cultivation sects. The protagonist's severed arm is restored by one of the cultivators as a casual act of power, but the remaining group is ignored as insignificant. Left behind, the protagonist, Director Kim, Deputy Manager Oh, and Manager Kim Yeon try to recover from the shock of their friend's abduction. The next day, with Deputy Manager Oh gravely ill and feverish, a new being appears, Seo Hweol, the Sea Dragon King. He reveals that their presence at Ascension Path is a matter of probability, as this place is a nexus for powerful cultivators drawn by the rare Ascension Gate event. Seo Hweol cures Deputy Manager Oh's illness with a touch, decides to claim her for his tribe, and warns the others never to question high-level beings lightly. With the display of overwhelming power, he departs with Deputy Manager Oh leaving the remaining trio in despair. As rain falls and their numbers dwindle, the survivors are left frightened and uncertain, clinging to each other as the world around them grows ever more fantastical and perilous. Manager Kim, on the edge of breaking, pleads for reassurance that the protagonist won't disappear as well. But the protagonist knows that by nightfall, yet another companion will be taken by a force beyond their understanding. After the rain finally ceased and the sky cleared, the mood among those left behind grew heavy with the absence of Deputy Manager O. Deciding to fend off the gloom by gathering food, the group stuck together, wary of further danger. Herbs and fruits were collected, with Deputy Manager Seo using his knowledge to keep everyone warm and well fed. The others expressed gratitude for his resourcefulness, while Seo inwardly saw himself as simply trading what little he had for their goodwill. As night approached and firewood was scarce, Seo burned his own shirt to cook fruit, offering a gesture of comfort before an impending farewell. They shared what would likely be their last meal with Manager Kim, exchanging laughter and conversation to mask their sadness. As the sun set, Manager Kim suddenly began to sense her surroundings on an extraordinary scale, clutching her head in pain as her abilities awakened. Moments later, a massive puppet arrived, bearing a hunchbacked old man who descended and identified the source of the unusual consciousness. Dismissing Director Kim's attempt to intervene, the old man declared his intent to take Manager Kim as his disciple, intrigued by her potential. Manager Kim, heartbroken at the thought of another separation, begged for her friend's safety. The old man relented, promising to send CEO and Director Kim away through a spatial rift, severing their worldly connections forever. As the rift opened, Seo managed to gather his herbs before he and Director Kim were pulled through, losing consciousness as Manager Kim reached out to them in desperation. Upon awakening, Seo found himself in an alley, the location different from his memories of the past regression. Evidence that the rift's destination had changed due to the butterfly effect. Gathering his scattered herbs, he stepped out into the bustling streets, relieved to discover he was in a familiar land, the capital city of Yangguo, Seokyong. Realizing fate had cast him somewhere new, Seo prepared to face the unknown path ahead. After the rain finally stopped, the group struggled to find comfort in the absence of Deputy Manager Oh, who had been taken away. Despite the despondency, a determined effort was made to gather food and herbs, with Deputy Manager Seo guiding Director Kim and Manager Kim through the forest. Using his knowledge from a previous life, he ensured their survival and did his best to lift their spirits, even burning his own clothes to make a fire and roasting fruits for a shared meal. As night fell and they attempted to find solace in each other's company, Manager Kim suddenly awakened a mysterious ability, sensing everything for kilometers around. The onset of her power brought her pain, and before they could react, a hunchbacked old man on a monstrous puppet descended from the sky, drawn by her awakening. The old man, curious about the abnormal extent of her consciousness, declared his intention to take Manager Kim as his disciple, claiming he could awaken her spiritual roots. Despite her pleas not to be separated from her friends, he was unmoved until she begged for their safety. Only then did he relent, agreeing to send Director Kim and Deputy Manager Seo away through a spatial rift, severing their worldly ties. Despite desperate cries and a final reach from Manager Kim, the two were sucked into darkness. When consciousness returned, Deputy Manager Seo found himself, along with Director Kim and their gathered herbs, in an unfamiliar alley. Realizing the randomness of the spatial rift, he quickly stashed their supplies and stepped out to investigate. Instead of the place he remembered from his previous life, he discovered they had landed in the bustling capital of Yangguo, Seokyong City, and not their old destination. The realization set in that even small changes could completely shift the course of fate in this new life. After awakening Director Kim and briefing him on their situation in the unfamiliar world, the two find themselves in the bustling streets of Seokyung City, standing out due to their strange clothes and inability to communicate. Relying on his knowledge from a previous life, Hyun manages to sell valuable herbs at various pharmacies in the city, gradually upgrading their attire and finally securing enough funds to buy a small house on the outskirts. He begins teaching Director Kim the language and script of the land, as well as the Cheonjihar method, a basic internal breathing technique. Director Kim reveals his remarkable aptitude by mastering the basics of internal energy in a mere 3 months, far outpacing Eunhyun's own progress from his past life. Recognizing Director Kim's potential, Eunhyun proposes joining a martial arts sect for protection and advancement, explaining the landscape of Seokyung City sects. Director Kim, excited by the prospect of learning swordsmanship, chooses the demon slaying sect. Using a significant bribe, they secure Kim's entry as an outer disciple with extra privileges due to the size of their donation, though only Kim is accepted to learn martial art. While Kim is initially hesitant about leaving Un-hyun out, Un-hyun insists this is the best plan and promises to support him through business. Kim Young-hoon, encouraged, commits himself to learning martial arts with all his might. 7 months pass, and the demon-slaying sect is thrown into commotion, the result of the remarkable progress of its newest disciple. Kim Young-hoon's rapid rise in the demon-slaying sect quickly earns him suspicion, as he masters advanced martial arts in mere months and attains first-rate status, a level that would take most a lifetime. His progress is so remarkable that the sect confines both him and the narrator, suspecting them of being spies. Despite this, Kim Young-hoon feels on the verge of breaking through to an even higher realm, and soon, with the help of a rare medicinal root, he pushes past the barrier to become a peak master. He easily defeats the elders who try to cripple him, forcing their retreat, and decides to seek out new challenges. Both men leave the sect, with Kim Young-hoon heading to the dragon fighting stronghold, where he quickly distinguishes himself and eventually becomes one of the 3 greatest swordsmen of the world. The narrator, lacking martial talent, instead finds his calling in medicine. 10 years pass, and Kim Young-hoon's fame grows as he collects powerful martial arts, eventually founding the Wulin Alliance to unite the martial world. The narrator becomes his chief strategist. Another decade goes by, and Kim Young-hoon, now rejuvenated in body after reaching the realm of 5 energies, converging to the origin, steps down to let the next generation lead. Yet, the shadow of the cultivators, beings who manipulate the world behind the scenes, looms large. Despite his unmatched martial prowess, Kim Young-hoon learns firsthand the terrifying gap between martial artists and cultivators. Even after decades of effort, he finds himself barely able to scratch a low-level cultivator, realizing the true limits of martial art. Driven by frustration and the desire to overcome these limits, Kim Young-hoon spends another decade confronting cultivators, eventually developing a new martial art. But after a crushing defeat by a core formation cultivator, he recognizes that martial arts cannot surpass the boundaries set by cultivation. He resolves to become a cultivator himself, leaving behind his insights and a final request for the narrator to pass on his martial art as a lifeline for future generations. The narrator is left to reflect on a lifetime spent striving beside a genius, achieving worldly success, yet always yearning to see what lies beyond mortal limits. As age claims him, he finds peace with his life, but his only lingering regret is never witnessing his companion truly transcend the heavens. On the first day of his second regression, the overwhelming vitality of a new body brings an unsettling realization: regression is not a one-time blessing, but a recurring fate that erases everything achieved in each life. While easily dodging Jun Myung-hoon's angry attacks, the sense of loss becomes clear. The hard-won accomplishments of 50 years are gone, and the fear of endless cycles grows. The determination forms to eliminate this power, or at least prevent its activation, setting a new long-term goal to discover the origin of regression and ultimately return home, believing the solution lies in becoming a cultivator and reaching the ascension gate. Since the spiritual root is necessary to become a cultivator, and knowing from experience that the state of 5 energies converging to the origin can awaken one even in a mortal, the path forward is clear. He must relentlessly pursue martial arts mastery, even if it means relying on regression to eventually succeed. As the day turns to night, he takes practical steps for survival, preparing a sheltered cave, gathering firewood and herbs, and readying himself for the fox's likely return. Practicing severing mountain swordsmanship, he laments how much skill has faded but resolves to regain it, this time vowing to avoid the distractions and burdens of large sects or alliances. Breathing exercises clear his mind, and a sudden recollection brings hope. If Kim Young-hoon, the genius of his past life, could create a martial art designed to fight cultivators, what if he learned it from the beginning? Maybe this could open another path. As the others arrive, drawn by the fire, he seizes the chance to plant the seeds for a new beginning, asking Kim Young-hoon to practice health and breathing exercises with him, hinting at the start of a new approach to cultivation in this second cycle. After surviving the ordeal with the fox and sacrificing an arm, the group is allowed to remain on the land. As before, Jun Myung-hoon's scheming leads to him being forced to offer blood to a snake, and soon after, several colleagues are kidnapped. The Sea Dragon King appears, intent on taking deputy manager. Oh, and reveals that By bestowing his blood, he can grant her a spiritual root, allowing her to become a cultivator. An attempt to persuade him to consider taking others is met with a harsh warning about the insignificance of mortals before beings like him, and the Sea Dragon King departs in a display of power. That night, after Manager Kim awakens her abilities, a mysterious figure arrives and claims her as a disciple, explaining that there exist rare medicines and artifacts that can awaken spiritual roots in mortals, and that even martial arts taken to the highest extreme can serve this purpose, though the path is long and uncertain. The figure opens a spatial rift, pulling both the narrator and Kim Young-hoon away, while Manager Kim is left behind reaching out to them. Regaining consciousness in a dark cave, the narrator finds they have been transported to a new place, this time a forest outside of Dangxianhyang. Using the Cheonji heart method to stabilize inner energy and consuming a precious bamboo root, the narrator refines their chi with the dragon vine chi method, clearing their meridians and testing their swordsmanship by felling a tree with an empowered branch. Kim Young-hoon is shocked by this display, but accepts the narrator's fabricated story of inheriting a martial legacy from a mysterious book. The two of them leave the forest together, with the narrator teaching Kim Young-hoon martial fundamentals and the local language. By observing the stars, they find their way to Yonghyo City in Yangwoo, noting that every time they are displaced, it is still within this country, and entertaining the idea that perhaps fate is guiding them. Settling in the city, they sell herbs and acquire identification, clothes, and a house. With basic needs secured, the narrator contemplates their own limitations and resolves to focus on training Kim Young-hoon to the peak level as quickly as possible, planning to learn from him in turn, as this seems the surest path to achieving greater heights in this life. 4 months passed as Kim Young-hoon advanced with astounding speed, consuming the precious yellow bamboo root and soon manifesting the 3 flowers. Gather at the summit, signifying his ascent to the pinnacle realm. His talent was so remarkable that he surpassed even his own prior expectations, and while refining the severing mountain swordsmanship, he created an entirely new martial art, the severing vein saber method. Recognizing his extraordinary prowess, he was entrusted with a mysterious martial arts manual, the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial art, a legacy from a previous life that only those beyond the pinnacle could comprehend. Kim Young-hoon was stunned by its depth, realizing it revealed a martial philosophy that only those at the highest realms could begin to grasp. The conversation turned to the elusive stages of martial progression from third rate to late first rate, but details about the pinnacle realm remained veiled even from those who had reached its threshold. Kim Young-hoon explained that the true nature of the pinnacle could not be conveyed. It was a world apart, dangerous to even contemplate without direct experience. Driven by his new strength, Kim Young-hoon challenged every small and mid-sized martial school in Yonghyo City, quickly defeating them all and drawing the attention of the mighty Kia River sect, the city's leading faction. The sect welcomed him with respect, acknowledging his feats. In an arena challenge, Kim Young-hoon faced the sect leader first, then the Grand Elder, defeating both within seconds using his overwhelming new martial art. Finally, he met Pal Jiktai, the Supreme Elder, a true master of 3 flowers. Gather at the summit. The duel between the 2 peak masters was so swift and intense that only a handful could follow their movements. Their clash shook the arena, weapons and energy flying. But ultimately, Kim Young-hoon broke through, disarming Pal Jiktai and claiming victory. The Supreme Elder, recognizing the monstrous nature of Kim Young-hoon's martial art, conceded defeat, pledging to close the sect for 3 years as custom demanded. Despite his victories, Kim Young-hoon was somber, feeling he had only followed the forms of the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, not yet mastering its essence or surpassing its creator. He resolved to travel further, seeking duels with other peak masters to deepen his understanding, inviting his companion to join him on this relentless martial journey. With their brotherly bond reaffirmed, both set out anew, determined to climb even higher in the world of martial art. Years passed in the shadow of Young-hoon Hyun-nim's extraordinary rise. His progression through the martial world was even swifter than before, claiming the title of Yangwo's #1 warrior and besting even the legendary 4 stars 3 demons when they attacked him together. As he soared to the top, I trained under his guidance, advancing to late second rate and fully embodying my techniques, yet always feeling the yawning gap between us. When Young Hoon Hyung Nim grew weary of the lack of worthy opponents, I suggested exploring neighboring countries, and together we toured Shingzi and Byokra, learning their languages and conquering their martial world. With each victory, his talent propelled him further, culminating in the Five Energies realm. But the thrill of battle faded as there remained no one left to challenge him. Seeking purpose, I encouraged him to create a martial faction, and so the Palace of Martial Extremity was born, quickly attracting the best in the land and establishing itself as Yangguo's top sect. Yet, our growing influence drew the attention of mysterious cultivators who demanded our allegiance. Young Hoon Hannim, his fighting spirit reignited, refused. In the ensuing confrontation, he handily defeated them, declaring his independence and finding, at last, a sense of excitement. His martial path was meant to contend with cultivators, not mere mortals. Determined to focus only on the capable, he expelled all but the top disciples and elders, leaving a lean force of over 300. He trained us relentlessly, especially those who had reached the Three Flowers, in the principles and tactics of his supreme martial art, while I struggled to advance, my progress lagging despite a decade of effort. Though I served as vice leader, my lack of martial talent left me an outlier. Even after 10 years, I had only barely reached early first rate, while many disciples pressed against the ceiling of the pinnacle realm. Still, I contributed through intelligence, espionage, and strategy, earning respect for my skills off the battlefield. Trouble brewed as the government and martial world, manipulated by the cultivators, marked us as enemies. We became fugitives, our faction renamed Palace of Demons, and Young Hoon Hung Nim, the Extreme Demon. For a decade, we evaded pursuit, surviving countless battles and growing ever stronger as more disciples reached the peak, while the palace's reputation swelled into a near religious fervor. Only Young Hoon Hung Nim and I remained unchanged. He, the unparalleled master, and I, the struggling first rate. As threats mounted, I uncovered through espionage that the cultivator clan was preparing to intervene directly. Presenting my findings to the elders, I proposed an audacious strategy. Strike first, targeting the cultivators while they were scattered. With my knowledge from a past life, I identified their locations, and our palace prepared to hunt them down. Young Hoon Hung Nim, vowing to raise my strength above even the lowest, led us into a new campaign, this time to challenge the cultivators themselves. The Palace of Heavenly Demons sent shockwaves through the world by burning down an estate in Hoguk City, but the true uproar came from the knowledge that extreme heavenly demon Young Hoon had killed a cultivator, a feat that alarmed the powerful and secretive elite who understood the terror of cultivators. While the world seemed calm on the surface, those with insight knew chaos was brewing. Young Hoon, unfazed, sought out even stronger opponents, and with careful planning, the Palace of Heavenly Demons began systematically hunting down cultivators across Yangguo. For half a year, they eradicated the weakest of the cultivators, only to learn a shattering truth. These so-called formidable foes were merely the lowest level, one-star chi, refining cultivators, the absolute bottom rung of their world. The cultivators themselves revealed the harsh hierarchy, mocking the palace for barely having scratched the surface. Soon, they faced three-star chi refining cultivators, whose spells and techniques were far above what had come before, but the palace's peak masters, wielding the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, managed to prevail. The battles escalated as stronger cultivators appeared. A 4-star required intervention from elders, a 6-star fought an elder to near standstill, and a 7-star needed 5 elders to be brought down. Each victory was hard won and left the elders uneasy about what might come next, but Young Hoon's faith in the martial record never wavered. As the years passed, the palace gained breathing room, rebuilding their headquarters in Gyeongbyuk City. The attacks became sporadic, with lower-level cultivators falling to the hands of their Three Flowers elders. In this relative quiet, the protagonist continued ceaselessly training, finally reaching the mid-level first grade, able to manifest sword energy and split boulders, a milestone that brought both satisfaction and the sobering realization of limited years left to master the pinnacle. This peace was shattered when a cultivator of a new level arrived, introducing himself as a chi-building investigator, a being of a power leagues above anything the palace had fought. The battle with Young Hoon raged above the palace, magical artifacts and overwhelming force clashing against martial arts. Cunning. For the first time, Young Hoon was visibly exhausted and nearly overmatched, only barely managing to kill the cultivator after a desperate struggle. His saber, once unbreakable, had lost its edge in the process, and he had to admit that magical weapons were a force to be reckoned with. Yet, rather than despair, Young Hoon found renewed hope. With the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, even these mighty cultivators could be slain. He declared that martial artists could truly triumph over cultivators, rallying the palace with newfound belief. But as hope soared, a new threat loomed. In just 2 months, 50 chi-building cultivators descended upon the palace, signaling that the true war between martial artists and cultivators had only just begun.